and I came under a vicious attack by the tabloid media, led by one Phil Mushnick of the New York Post. It's been the equivalent, in my view, of journalistic stalking. As we found out, these stalkers apparently are not interested in the truth, as they have been heard to say in the tabloid newsroom, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
What is up, everybody? You are checking out the Uncensored Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, the hot commodity Ant C, and you just saw Vince McMahon back in December 1995 giving a speech about how WWE was involved in as he claims, a media spectacle. And he's talking about the steroid trial when the United States government went to court with Vince McMahon and WWE over steroids. And this is a recap of the Something to Wrestle With episode starring Britt Pritchard and Conrad Thompson. Let's dive into the facts. So in 1991, Dr. Zahorian was sentenced to 30 years for steroids. In April 1994, Vince McMahon took steroids. Steroids were prescribed by doctors at the time. In 1990, steroids became a Schedule III drug. Crimes happened from 1985 to 1991. On April 13th, 1989 and October 1989, Vince McMahon got steroids for Hulk Hogan on those specific dates. The trial starts on July 5th, 1994. There was a hiring freeze during this time. On July 17th, 1994, WWE had Bash at the Beach, the first pay-per-view match between Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. This is 12 days after the trial starts. Vince McMahon was facing 11 years in prison and a $1.5 million fine. They spent $6 million on the actual defense, though. So the fine was $1 million, but they spent $6 million to defend themselves. They spoke with people like Geraldo Rivera, Phil Donahue, that WWE was horrible, led by a drug-dealing owner. Bruce believes the U.S. government had talk show hosts do this. Vince's mantra was the show must go on. People in government would wait and talk to employees, go to their homes, talk to their wives, and then try to talk to them. It was a blessing that the O.J. Simpson trial was happening in the media during that time. The government claimed Titan Towers was purchased with drug money. Anita Scales was making sure WWE was compliant with athletics. She wanted to get rid of Zahorian. Chief Jay Strongbow supposedly told her Zahorian had to stay because the boys wanted candy. Linda McMahon then tells her to listen to Pat Patterson, and they all agree, and then finally they get rid of Zahorian. Zahorian did not work for WWE. He worked for the State Athletic Commission. Pat Patterson wanted Zahorian to get rid of WWE paperwork. Doug Sages, the chief financial advisor for WWE, was involved. He provided bank checks for Vince McMahon so he could buy drugs. Emily Feinberg is Vince McMahon's assistant. She got fired in 1991, and she got paid a year severance and became an informant. Emily testified that Vince used bank money to get a refrigerator that had vials. She delivered to Hulk Hogan, and it happened in 1988 during No Holds Barred. Zeus was also getting steroids as well. Bruce claims the refrigerator was there before the steroid trial. Rick Rude takes a stand and says Vince McMahon asked why he was skinny and suggested he use steroids. Nail says in January 1992, Nails meets with Vince in January 1992, and Vince told Nails he needed to be big. Nails told Vince he wouldn't take the job if he needed to take steroids. That's Nails' claim. Nails then says he doesn't have personal animosity towards Vince McMahon, but he hates him. So, yeah. Bruce was questioned by the U.S. government. Vince told the government if they wanted to talk to anyone, they could. The government asked crazy questions. Bruce partied and they asked him about his habits. It's not illegal to use, it's illegal to have and sell, Bruce claims. $1,188 and $650 was how much he bought, and Vince McMahon spent $6 million in the defense. Zahorian claims he spoke with Vince McMahon, told him that if wrestlers got off street, it wouldn't be good, and Vince said it was okay to keep giving to them. Bruce claims Sylvester Stallone and other actors who gain muscle fast use steroids. Moondog Spot admitted he was laying when Vince McMahon was an announcer and wondered if he lost the gimmick because of it, because he didn't want to use steroids. Tom Zank said a high school complained that needles were found there. He told Linda McMahon in 1987 and he left. Linda asked for a piece of his new contract. Tully Blanchard had a meeting with Vince McMahon at pool while in NWA. Vince told him that steroids and other stuff are okay. Vince denies this, saying he never heard, and tells guys to get on roids. Zaharian tells Tully in WWE he could have whatever he wants. The Ultimate Warrior takes a stand. In 85 to 90% of the roster was on steroids. Warrior says in February 1989 he left steroids in a hotel. Hulk Hogan then testifies Hulk would get his pics, fan mail, and the steroids at the same time. Hulk and Vince McMahon would exchange the steroids together, and Hulk says Vince McMahon never directed him to take the steroids. Big John Studd says he took steroids by choice. Jerry Jarrett, who was a TV consultant, was back then, and J.J. Dillon and Vince brought in Jerry Jarrett. Bruce says Jerry is a liar. Bruce mocks Jerry's chicken salad order. Bruce heard Pat screaming not guilty when verdict came in. They cried and they celebrated in Long Island. So this is just a quick rundown of that whole steroid trial. As a person born in 1993, I didn't know the full story of it. So hearing that WWE really went to war with the U.S. government was definitely interesting. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay safe and stay uncensored.